Thank you for standing by and welcome to the solar announcement. During today's conference, all lines will be in a listen-only mode. There will be presentation followed by question and answer session. I must advise you this conference is being recorded today on Monday, February the 18th, 2013. I would now like to hand the conference over to your first speaker today, Mr. Flemming Tomdrup. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this morning's conference call where Michael Jeppesen and I, Flemming Tomdrup, is available to questions after yesterday's stock exchange announcement. Unfortunately, Michael and I are in two different geographical positions, which for that reason we can only communicate via the open line if there should be a need for that in connection with sharing our answers to your questions. We'll do our very best to make it work. We are open for questions, so the word back to you, Lee, please.
Your first question comes from the line of Christian Johansen of Carnegie.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
First of all, could you indicate whether these restructuring initiatives you take in the Netherlands will make this business at a break-even level in 2014 if you just assume no top-line growth?
The restructuring initiative that we have launched in Holland, and notice, please, that the major part of the restructurings that we are initiating are, of course, relating to the Dutch operation, is with the clear intention of bringing the company back to a profitable situation. It's, of course, based on some assumptions, and we do assume that the market here in 2013 will be in a poorer condition than what we saw in 12. But given the restructuring initiatives here, we think that going forward we will be able to have a profitable operation.
But do you need growth on the top line in 14 in order to achieve that? No.
No.
All right. So you'll be profitable even though sales in 14 would be at the same levels as 13.
Correct. That's the target.
Good. Thank you. That's the first question. Can you tell us a little bit more specific what you're actually doing in the Dutch business? I mean, restructuring-wise.
Well, we are doing both structural changes and reductions overall. We have seen good effects already from the Solar 8000 implementation. So part of that is the effect of restructuring already now, and later during the middle of the year we will conduct further changes. Those departments that will be affected by that are already advised we still have something to do on the Solar 8000. So it is a major restructuration. I don't think we've been through anything similar in size to my best understanding. And it is taking out some activities which has been loss-making for some time and focusing our initiatives on strengthening the sales to small and medium-sized customers, the industry customers, and furthermore to strengthen the margin side, both upstream and downstream.
Okay, thank you. And then just a question regarding your investments for 2013. Should we expect a level of investment similar to what you had in 12?
That's a qualified guess, maybe slightly above.
Slightly above, fair enough. And then regarding your the synergies for SAP. Do you expect that you will see a full effect of Danish and Swedish synergies in 14?
Well, as we wrote in the stock announcement yesterday, we will still be conducting implementation and rollouts of Solar 8000 in Denmark and Sweden during this year, 2013. This means that when we reach 14, we will have, and I should say also, that we have had proof of concept with our new group template with regard to Norway, who performed very satisfactory in the second half of 2012, and also is expected to continue to do that on the new SAP platform. So this is very crucial to understand that we have had proof of concept that it works. So we will have full effect of Norway. We will have full effect of Holland. We will have almost full effect of Denmark, and we will have part of the effect of the increased profitability of 8 to 10 million euros that we have been talking about for quite some time now in 2014. But we will not have full effect of Sweden, full effect of the 3 countries, and partly effect of Sweden in 14. And we still confirm that the costs and investments are as planned, and the savings 8 to 10 million is still on. Is that clear enough, Christian? Or?
Yes, that's very clear.
Yeah. Okay.
Then just a last question. You state one of the reasons for downgrading your sales in 13 due to lower solar panel sales in Denmark. What has changed here since you provided the 13 guidance the last time?
What happened was that we were, of course, aware that given the change in legislation, all sale to private or to residential buildings would end at the latest in May. The way the legislation is changed is that you need to apply for this before a certain date in December, and then you need to have it installed before some day in May. We were absolutely convinced that there would be a tail effect. Meaning that the sale will slowly come down, and we were of course aware that by the end of May, when the new legislation comes into full force, sales to residential buildings will be very, very limited. But unfortunately, we have seen a steep drop in this, meaning the sales in January is close to zero. So it stopped much faster than we have expected.
Okay, just to see if I understand this correct, because I was of the understanding that you just needed to announce to the authorities that you're going to put up a solar panel on your house, and then you're allowed to install it afterwards. But does that mean that the sales you see, was ahead of the announcement to authorities? If you understand.
You understand?
No,
but yeah, come
on, Michael. No, come on, continue.
Your understanding is correct, but we were sure that there was a lot of applications where the actual solar panels had not been delivered. Yeah. So there would be a sale for these in the months to come, but it doesn't look like that.
Okay.
With two things maybe to add to that, if I may, Christian. We do not know how many installations that has not yet been carried out, and if users who originally got an approval last year will invest or not invest if they are insecure of things being changed going forward. We don't know anything about that at this point of time. Secondly, of course, the weather has not helped to go up on roofs, but we are, when we talk to our customers, we know they have laid off quite a substantial number of people in the installers, by the installers, electrical contractors in Denmark at this point of time. So they're laying off the people simply because they have nothing to do, and their expectations is that there will be very low sales in 2013 to consumers. So that's the situation as we have it now. But we do not know if the tail will be installed. There is a time limit of 6 months, as Michael mentioned, from the last day of the approval last year.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was all for me.
Pleasure, Christian.
Thank you. Your next request comes from the line of Patrick Sutterberg of Nordea.
Yes, hello, gentlemen. A couple of questions from my side as well. The first one is, could you please elaborate on the situation in Sweden, which you saw during Q4?
Yes. What we saw in Sweden is that the trend, basically the continuation of the trends that we have seen in 12, where we see a shift from small and mid-sized to more large accounts, and also an increased sales to projects. where we have a lower earnings potential. So it's basically the same trend we see. Even though we haven't disclosed the exact figures, from that you can basically deduct that the performance also in Q4 in Sweden will be below 2011 Q4. So it is this shift that we are seeing, and we are simply not good enough in earning money on these projects. Do you have anything to add, Flemming?
No, I think it's a fair answer, and I think you can also see that if you compare when you see the figures, if you compare with other figures that has been released from a competitor on the stock exchange in Paris, you will be seeing that we are also keeping up our sales and revenues better than that competitor has done. So it's most likely a question about us having taken the big orders, possibly at the right time, taking the market into consideration that it has slowed down. But as Michael said, we have eventually not been able to get the margin out that we should have done, or we have done it as good as we could on the big orders. Maybe the margin, that's our belief, is the margin has not been better, but we took them anyway. We decided to take the orders at a time where the market went down.
Okay, just some follow-up to that. When looking ahead, should we expect that Sweden will continue I'm expecting at least that Sweden may be in a negative territory regarding organic growth in the fourth quarter. Will that be the case as well in the first half of 2013? And secondly, the unfavorable mix you have seen on these large projects, is that as well something that will be continue when going ahead?
One of the biggest projects we have had has been finished up in the north of Sweden, has been finalized during 2012 Q4. So that's finalized, and we have been doing a substantial structured work in the second half of the year, without wanting to say too much really, if competitors might listen in on this at some point. We have done a very structured and will do a very structured process in order to secure growth in small and mid-sized contractors, which we traditionally have had a very strong position with in Sweden over the years.
So what I'm hearing is hopefully some growth and hopefully the margin should improve from here.
Yeah, I think we have grown on electrical. We have grown possibly better than the market also in 2012 overall on the market figures, Patrick. So I think we are growing and have still been able to grow our market since the latter part of 2011. But it's been growing, as Michael said, on bigger projects and with the big accounts. So it's a question about balancing out by taking hopefully a better, even stronger position in Sweden by doing it by small and mid-sized customers, and we see the first signs of that. And for competition reasons, I would like to refrain from going more into detail on that one.
Okay, fine. Then regarding your net working capital, was developed quite favorable in the fourth quarter. What potential do you see for further improvements in the net working capital in 2013?
The way we see it is when we run our internal benchmarks country by country, we can still see that there are competitors who outperform us on net working capital. So we think that there is still room for improvement here in most of the major countries. But again, it's not. You'll not see any major progress in this just overnight. It's something that been working with continuously for several years now. But it will constantly we'll constantly work on improving this, and we are absolutely convinced that we can manage to improve it even further. You should, however, notice that December was a very poor month, and that gives us a bit of tailwind in terms of the debtors.
Okay.
So it will bounce a bit back.
But overall, we can say that the growth, we also saw it, you all saw it with Euroland coming out with 0.9 minus negative growth of GDP. So it's obvious that Q4 has been a very bad quarter in many of our countries, and specifically December was a surprise that we saw negative organic growth to an extent that I don't recall having seen months similar to that in a number of also the big countries. So that, of course, helps, as Michael said, the snapshot at the end of December on debtors were, of course, helping us on a low net working capital. But it is a steady progress that we are doing on that, and it was just a snapshot that gave us an extraordinary low net working capital at the end of December.
Okay.
But again, there was some spillover effect from both Q2 and Q3, where it was the development was quite disappointing. So if you look at the cash flow effect as such, some of it is probably deferred cash flow from Q3.
Okay. Then my last question is I don't know if you can answer it, but I wanted to understand this potential of extraordinary dividend of up to 15 Danish kroner per share. How should we read this up to 15 Danish kroner per share? Is it likely that we'll get something up to 15 Danish kroner per share? I suppose is closely related to how you see the cash flow development is going to develop in 2013.
Your assumption seems to be or are quite precise here. The supervisory board, of course, wants to ask at the general meeting to have a permission to pay up to 15 Danish kroner. So that seems to be the max, at least you can count on. But again, if you look at the cash flow, and we're not going to buy any major companies at least, then we need to do something in order to stay within our gearing of between 1.5 and 2.5.
I think it's important that we have stated that, or that the board has stated that they will remain with a target of 1.5 to 2.5 times EBITDA. So that's a gearing target that we have and will remain with. We have put it out for the years towards 2015. It's also a sign that we have said when we have been asked lately, we have clearly stated that if we have nothing else to use the money for in connection with, for instance, investments or acquisitions, and we are clearly stating here that we are focusing on rolling out so 8,000 in Denmark and Sweden, and we are also focusing in on strengthening the profitability and specifically focus on the Dutch market as spoken about earlier. So this means that we could either pay out extra dividend or we could buy shares, and this is a sign from the board. I think that this is what they're going to do when they find it appropriate and where the gearing is coming out of the target on the bottom line for a longer period. Then active work on this should be expected going forward, as we have said for the past couple of quarters.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Your next request comes from the line of Daniel Patterson of SEB.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I have a few questions. Firstly, just a simple housekeeping question on the fourth quarter. Just to be clear, was there only the 0.7 million of one-offs in the quarter?
Could you repeat that, Daniel? I'm not sure I understood it.
I just want to be clear whether the EBITA of 13 million you're reporting, is there any special items other than the Solar 8,000 costs of 0.7 million?
There are restructuring costs of 1.6 million.
Okay.
2.3 in total.
Okay, thank you. Then also a couple of questions on the fourth quarter. How is the competitive environment developed? You've been talking a little bit about Sweden, but what about Denmark and what about Holland? When there's very little growth, I know there's a lot of growth in Denmark, but that's probably going to turn negative for the next 12 months. What are you seeing on the competitive environment? Is pricing pressure getting tougher? Is it the same?
Yeah, there's been a very strong competition. Good to have you back, Daniel. Anyway, welcome back.
Thank you.
As an analyst to Solar. We have also reported in the last quarters that we see a very strong competition in the declining Dutch market, and it's obvious that as soon as competitors hear about us moving into a new IT platform, that has of course strengthened the competition from certain competitors quite a lot during the second half, and not least Q4. So there is a strong competition on the Dutch market due to the lower volumes in general. I won't say that we have an ongoing tough market in Denmark, and that has definitely also continued in the second half of the year. So there's not a big change, unfortunately, in that to the good side.
Okay. Again, looking, I guess, to the fourth quarter, are there any particular product segments that you've been seeing doing worse than you expected? Heating, water, sanitation, or the cable market, or any segment flavor would be appreciated.
Well, I would say the competition on cables always turn very sour and very tough when the new building construction and new construction goes down. Then, of course, the market for cables, the market for cable support systems that carries the cables around in new buildings are always under heavy pressure. And this is one of the areas that we have also several times mentioned in our reports that we are replacing products that we have been dealing with for many years, and optimized margins and pricing on sales and installation material are under pressure when new construction is reducing. So unfortunately, that is the side. On the other hand, of course, whatever has to do with our blue energy activities, the energy efficient activities, including also solar light, our own lighting concept, that we can see is still growing, and so is other products like safety and security. So there are product ranges that are increasing, but they are fewer, they are newer, and the big ones like cables and installation material will always come under pressure when new construction is so low.
Okay, that's very helpful. Just another question on the cash flow. You just mentioned it briefly that you got some help on debtors in the fourth quarter. What is your view here on the loss of debtors? I also note that you're stating that the accounts aren't 100% done yet. So is there a risk that once you've sort of tallied all the beads, you will find losses in the fourth quarter on debtors? And what's your view on this?
Very unlikely.
Okay.
That we'll come up with anything there.
Well, further to what we have had, Michael, I think you should add, huh?
Sorry, you're saying...
No, I'm trying to say that yes, debtors and losses on debtors is of course an issue and has been an issue.
Clearly an issue, yes.
A clear issue during 2012, but to expect that there will be something coming up now and towards the finishing of the accounts is very unlikely.
Correct.
Ones, but there has been losses in Q4, unfortunately, and the market is tight in connection with debtors, that's for sure.
And just my final question on the debtor side, when we're looking at your guidance for 2013, have you been more prudent sort of in your guidance when thinking about debtors, or is it business as usual? In relation to your guidance, I'm thinking.
In relation to the guidance, we do still expect loss on debtors to be above what you will call a normal level. And what is a normal level? That'll probably be your next question. Typically, you can expect roughly 0.25% of the revenue as loss on debtors. But in 13 we also expect to be above that level, similar to what we have been here in 2012.
Okay, thank you. That's very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your next question comes from the line of Klaus Kell of New Credit Markets.
Yes, hello, Klaus Kell from New Credit Markets. A couple of questions. First of all, I can see that you now expect that the restructuring program will yield savings of 9 million euros in going forward, versus 5.5 previously announced. But I was just wondering how certain you are about these 9 million, and will we see the full impact in 2014?
You should see the full impact in 2014. What you should be very careful about is just to take the cost in 12 and then deduct 9 million and then say that's the cost going forward. Because unfortunately, in most of the markets where we're operating, we have salary increase that are fixed more or less by law, meaning that in all other things equal scenario, salary will increase. But compared to doing nothing, the effect is 9 million. So it's simply based on the reductions we are doing.
Law it means in this way union agreements that are made in those countries and which are
from central
are not an option, but central agreements on salary increases like we have it in Sweden, or for that sake in Holland, and for that sake in Belgium also. So that's the unfortunate situation we have. It's like part of the Danish work market also.
Okay, and is it mainly or 100% related to headcounts, or is there also some more soft cost factors in this program?
It's mainly related to headcounts.
Okay. Yes. And my second question would be that you take down your guidance for 2013 by 8 to 10 million euros, of which approximately 3 million are related to increased restructuring costs. So that means that you take it down by 5 to 7 million on an underlying basis. Could you split that between Denmark and the Holland? I guess that's the main reasons for the lower guidance in 13.
Correct. We haven't given any precise information about it, but since you know the growth in Denmark, you can calculate that the sale of solar panel and accessories must have been around 15 to 16 million euro, and you know how much it was in Q3 as well, depending a bit on how fast you expected it to drop. In 2013, that could give you an idea about how much we're actually talking about we expect to lose.
Okay. Yes, my final question would be that the Dutch government, they announced a plan to help the housing market in Holland the other day. Have you had any chance to look at the details and how it might affect your operation?
Well, we have very bad experiences with that specific initiative, that is to reduce VAT from 21 to 5%. Last time there were very bad stories on front pages of the Dutch newspapers telling about electrical contractors that still invoiced 21% in VAT, even though they only had to do 5% in reality at that time. So I think we are a bit. We're going to see how this will work. It was good that the government finally decided to put up the initiative. We'll see if it comes through the first chamber where they don't have a majority, and hopefully it will come through their second chamber. They have a majority in the new government. So all in all, we expect that to come through. It's too early for us to judge if this will have an effect. But any initiative, of course, is very much welcomed. That can strengthen in any country any initiative that is coming. Also, if the Danish government on the 1st of March, when they do their competitive, what should we say, proposals. Any initiative that can help the construction market will be, of course, investigated by us, and we will see to it that we use it to the maximum. So hopefully it will have a effect, but it's too early for us at this point of time to comment on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Your next question comes from the line of Christian Reinhold of Small Cap Denmark.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Christian.
I would like to go a bit back to Holland again, because could you be a bit more specific what the problems have been in Holland? Is it in the old solar business? Is it in the business that you bought by Fagro? And also, could you please comment on the 4 acquisitions you made last year? How are they doing in these poor market circumstances?
Well, if I take Holland first, and you can maybe comment on the rest, Michael.
Yep,
is that okay?
I'll do the rest.
If we look at Holland, well, first of all, as we have spoken about, Christian, quite a few times, the market has been extremely poor, and the drop in market volume is very substantial during 2012. So that's the overall market drop. We had a launch of our Solar 8000 in the months just before the summer holiday. Had a good start. July, August was good. When we reached the end of August, we realized that a new facility, which was specifically related to project sales and which was related to the former Fagro activities, where we had J.D. Edwards system in place, that was not used in a proper way, you can say, by the organization, and thereby we got, for a shorter period of time, some disturbances in our supply chain, and that causes immediately in Holland that the customers temporarily shift to other suppliers, and it goes very, very, very fast. So we have temporarily some negative impact of lack of service degrees, which we are luckily enough back on very high service levels again, but it has cost us some drop. But the main drop is coming from the market, and the margin side is definitely very, very, very tough competition in the diminishing market conditions. And then maybe to the 4 countries, Michael.
Yeah. If you look at the 4 countries, in Austria, we unfortunately saw some very huge losses on debtors, which, given the size of the company, were completely unacceptable. So we are right now launching some initiatives in order to avoid this going forward. It mainly seems to be debtors who go bankrupt due to a project that is going wrong, which of course always can be difficult to predict. But despite this, they are still profitable and generating a positive cash flow. Belgium is developing quite well, is maybe a strong word, but they're developing even though the market conditions in Belgium has clearly worsened. Then we have both the German and the Dutch operation. The German operation is continue business as they always been doing, delivering a small positive margin, and the same you can say about Cornelco. Cornelco has of course also suffered because of the setback in the Dutch market, but they are absolutely still profitable and delivering positive cash flow.
Okay. And what about the situation on management in Holland? One of your managers left here in Q4, I think it was. Are you in place with the new management, or how should we see that?
No, it was in early December that we decided to depart, and we have a process ongoing in seek for a new managing director to our Dutch operation. It's in full process. It's of course at the end of the day, depending on how long time we are going to wait for that candidate to be able to join us. Most likely, it will be, but it's absolutely insecure because we don't have the candidate in place at this point of time. So it's a pure guess that normally it will take until the middle, around the middle of the year, but it could be later on. So that's the time. So I'm temporarily looking after the Dutch operation, parallel to the other activities.
Okay. And my last question is regarding the guidance. You have been too optimistic for various reasons with your guidance for 2012. Have you been especially cautious with the guidance of 2013, or how should we compare that to earlier guidance?
There is still, of course, uncertainty in 13, mainly related to how the market situation will develop in Holland. So I think that's the major risk factor as we see it. But
the way you have made your guidance is the same as last year. You have not been especially cautious this time.
We try always to give the fair picture that we believe, and we don't. We have not changed process compared to our way of giving guidance for 2012. Nope. So that is unchanged. We have not been moving towards an extremely conservative judgment of the.
Okay, but after two profit warnings, you might think that you have to take that into account. That it has been very hard for you to predict the market.
Well, it's very, very hard to predict that the market in December, for instance, suddenly is down by over 20% in major countries. It's very, very difficult to predict, even though we knew there were fewer working days. But the fact that it should go so low in really big markets was a surprise to us, and I think to the market as such. But so we have to accept humbly that we have been. It's been necessary for us to realize that our outlook for 2012 was not correct, and that's of course very. We regret that very much. We try to narrow out to the market the best we can the possibilities. It is a day-to-day business, and certainly moving down to those levels that we saw in December was and in Q4 overall. I don't think anybody had expected Euroland to go 0.9% down on GDP for the whole of Q4, even though it's a huge drop. So the activity level in Europe in Q4 has been very low, and possibly lower than most people have predicted, I would guess.
Okay, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Your next question comes from the line of Peter Rossen at Danske Capital.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of follow-up questions here on Netherlands. If I see a stock exchange announcement correctly, then you're coming in with something like 10 million euro loss in 2012, and looking at the full effect going into 13. My initial assessment will be that you're facing a similar loss in 2013. But also, as I heard you on the conference call, you said that the cost cutting you now have adopted here, that means that you're actually expecting some positive results or break even in 14. Maybe you could give a little bit more flavor of this to understand the dynamics that's happening here, and maybe also whether you already in 13 in the second half maybe expect to hit the break even. That's the first question.
What we have been doing is that I think I mentioned it, that we expect the market in 13 to be worse than in 12, and we have restructured the organization based on that assumption, and of course with the target that we should become profitable in that scenario. So we can sustain a drop in the market in 13 compared to 12, and then all other things equal going forward, we'll have a profitable company. I don't know if you need to add anything, Flemming, here.
No, I just want to say that, of course, first half of 2013 will also be highly impacted by restructuring costs.
Yeah,
so
most of the restructuring costs will be initiated there.
will be in the first half. So this means that first half 2013 in Holland, the figures will not look good. That's for sure. Just as an added comment.
Okay, fair enough. That's good to hear. That you're cutting into the bone. Secondly, overall on earnings recovery, also mentioned that 2013 is a year where you're focusing on raising profitability in key markets. Maybe you could comment a bit about whether this exercise you're now implementing, whether that's sufficient to reach the original margin targets for 2015. And also whether you have any considerations about best owner philosophy of some of your market positions, whether the challenges you're having now, whether that's making some considerations for divestments. So that was actually two questions in one, but so overall, I guess the question is how whether the target still is intact for 2015. Thanks.
The target is still intact for 2015. Otherwise, we would have changed that here in the announcement that was sent out yesterday. So that's obvious. The focus is naturally, as we have said before, to stabilize the situation in Holland and be able to profitably run a business on the level of activity which is now on a level which is very, very substantially lower than it was in 2009. It's a huge reduction in investment in construction in Holland that we have seen. So that's obvious. On the other hand, we still see our Norwegian company progressing very well, and we believe that they will do very good in 2013 also, even though we don't guide per country, as you know. Denmark is under pressure because of the lower volumes. On the other hand, we have always new initiatives taken in the market in order to secure that we can even service our customers better. So the Danish organization is, of course, looking to utilize their very strong position in the market and the very wide product offer that we have, and also the supporting capacity, not least on energy efficient solutions, where there is a growth and a strong impact, and where hopefully the competitive packages that the government will launch will also focus on energy efficiency when it comes on the 1st of March. And then finally, Sweden, as mentioned before earlier on, we see no reason that we should not be able to grow in those areas of the business. So overall, we have a strong focus on getting even more out of the Dutch and Swedish market, and also still strengthen our position going forward in Denmark and in Norway. If we look at the divestments, we will of course always seek to that. There's no doubt that we have not hidden that we still only have, out of all the different activities that have been divested since late 80s, I think we've done divestments and acquisitions of more than 70 companies since 1980s, late 80s. We only have our one left back, and we have always mentioned that the reason for still having our war around is that we've been the best owner for that, which eventually has been a question about getting the right price for that activity, which has proved also in 2012 to be a good business and have done very well with the major changes we've done over the last 3 years to the company. So that's obvious that if there's a better owner out there, we would always seek for that. The rest is core business as we see it. Should there be something of the core business that cannot be long-term profitable, then we have also clearly stated that but that will then be discussed internally in Solar, and naturally we will not announce if we should have any ideas on that. That would not be announced prior to us doing that. But it's obvious that we have said in the past that we need to be strong in the market. Either if it is a regionalized market, you have to be strong in the regions you are in, or if it is a smaller market, you have to be strong in the market as such. That is easier to earn a decent profit if you have a reasonably strong position, being among the 3, 4, 5 biggest in the country. So that's possibly not as precise as you would like it, but that's our answer to your question, Peter.
Okay, thank you. The last question, and just a clarification. Given that you announced this capital structure target of the low end range to 1.5, and also the discussions we had here about Holland probably giving some significant uplift into 14, and also the SAP synergies. If you are to stick to that gearing ratio, that would mean a double-digit dividend yield. Is that how we should understand it, or maybe you could give a little input on that?
Yeah, you can of course say that that is the most obvious interpretation of it, Peter.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry there is some time, but it's because we can't point at each other, so I'm just waiting for Michael, because I thought it was Michael's answer. So,
and it was my answer.
It was a bit late. Yeah, sorry, Peter. You were just thinking. Sorry, Peter.
Thank you.
Questions.
Your next question comes from the line of Christian Johansen at Carnegie.
Yes, just a quick follow-up. You mentioned before the high wage inflation. Can you comment more specifically on what rate of wage inflation you expect for the group?
We can say it varies tremendously from country to country. If you take Norway, for instance, you typically have wage inflation in the range of 4%. But maybe you can remember this, Flemming. Even in Holland,
between 0, I would say it's between 0 and 4 plus.
Yeah.
So that's in between that, but it varies quite a lot.
Quite a lot, yeah. Norway being the top.
But you know, if you have inflation of 1.5 to 2% on average in the whole market there, I would guess that you would possibly be on the just on the higher end of that. Maybe, Michael, I don't know, but I don't have the figure.
Qualified guess.
So, yeah,
okay.
Qualified guess, I would say.
Yep. All right. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Your next request comes from the line of Klaus Kehl of New Credit Markets.
Yes, also just 2 follow-up questions. First of all, we've talked a lot about the Netherlands and Denmark, etc. But as far as I have heard, you have not said that much about Germany. So could you please update us on the development in Q4? And also how you look at 2013, because you have hired a lot of new employees with focus on the industry segment. And yeah, I'm just curious about your comments about Germany. And secondly, it seems like you have had some troubles reading the market lately, and I can understand that. But could you just give some flavor on the start of 2013, even though I know that you only have around 1.5 months?
Well, if we look at the German market, then the big change where we lost quite a lot of people had effect from April 2012. So you should expect that we will still show in the first quarter of 2013, we will show a negative organic growth compared to last year. So what you should be really looking for, Klaus, is the figures going into second and third quarter. So that's quite important. We are impacted by a weak Q4 in the market, and it's one of the big markets that really performed extraordinarily bad in December. The market as such, the wholesale market in Germany as such overall, was very much impacted of low growth and possibly fewer working days also. So on the German side, be aware of how it looks, the figures on second and third quarter for Germany. I think that's where we can see if the initiatives that we have taken to strengthen our position, taken on the new people, get them on board. That's where you can really see that either things have worked or not. Whereas in first quarter, you should expect that we still have a negative organic growth. I don't know, Michael, if you have any comments to the start of the new year.
In the guidance, we have, of course, incorporated what we have seen in January. That's obvious. That's also why we know that the sale of solar panels has dropped to basically zero.
There are no further questions at this time.
Okay. And I think Michael and I and Sola would like to thank you very much indeed for prioritizing time to listening in on this conference call, on sharing the information in a proper way to the market. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
That does conclude this conference for today. Thank you for participating. You may all disconnect. Speakers, please stand by.